Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fire Engineering Talk Radio and another installment of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. Tom Merrill here, glad to have you along, and just to let you know, I am again pre-recording my show for my designated air night, which is scheduled for Tuesday, June 18th. This is the second show in a row that I've been forced to pre-record it. Not a big deal, and I want to let you know I do have some great guests lined up for future shows. I just want to do those shows live to allow you the opportunity to call in and ask questions, and so I do have a lot of shows scheduled for the rest of the year and even beyond, actually, with guests that have agreed to be on the show, and it's on a variety of subjects and a lot of different ideas I got. And, I've also been getting more and more feedback and emails and even phone calls from firefighters across the nation regarding many things, actually. But it got me thinking. I think I'm going to reach out to all of my listeners, to discuss with you and maybe solicit your feedback and get your ideas for future guests that you would like me to bring on the show. Maybe ideas and topics that you would want me to delve into, stories you want to share, things you're doing, and things you maybe heard about regarding our great fire service that support our main message here, that being a professional firefighter has nothing to do with bringing a paycheck home. It has everything to do with how you approach the job and train, how you prepare, how you treat others. And some take exception to that and say it's only a paycheck that determines if you are a professional or not. And I say, as many of you in my great audience out there do, say no. It's much more than a paycheck that determines if somebody is acting professionally. It's much more than paid staff or paid staffing that determines if a fire department is a professional fire department. And I want to share stories. I want to share examples of the great things that are being done out there to provide professional service to so many communities, right? There's still over 800,000 volunteer firefighters in the United States. Now, we talk about the declining membership, we talk about the challenges and the issues, and yes, we know there are challenges, there are issues. Many of us are facing declining membership. We have half the amount of members maybe we had just a decade ago, but there's still over 800,000 volunteer firefighters, and I'm just talking in the United States, not the whole world. And in the United States, that represents 69% of the firefighter population. Volunteer fire departments are handling over 35 million calls a year. And out of the roughly 30,000 volunteer or fire departments in the United States, nearly 20,000 are all volunteer. So there's a lot of us working hard to do the right things. Again, we have struggles, we have challenges, no doubt about it. We talk about them on this show every couple of months. Try to offer solutions, try to work together to come up with solutions. So if there's anything at all that you'd like to discuss, guests you'd like me to bring on, topics, success stories, even failures, and maybe things that have been maybe done the exact opposite way of what we would want as professional firefighters, please feel free to reach out to me. My email, tamerrill63@aol.com, and Merrill is spelled Merrill. So again, it's tamerrill63@aol.com. I have a Facebook page, personal, as Thomas Merrill, also a professional volunteer Facebook page. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, but I really want to hear back from you. I really want to hear from our valued listeners out there. So feel free to get a hold of me. And I know there's a lot of firefighters out there, just like you, that are listening in. I can see that from the stats that get provided to me regarding all the great podcasts that are sponsored by Fire Engineering. And while I'm at it, I definitely want to thank Fire Engineering and Chief Bobby Halton, all the great folks that are associated with Fire Engineering, the Penwell Corporation, Clarion Fire and Rescue Group, who all sponsor this podcast and allow me and the other Blog Talk hosts to do what we like to do. There's so many great shows. I'm sure you're listening to so many others. So I want to make sure I thank Chief Halton, Fire Engineering, Penwell, Clarion Fire and Rescue Group. So important that they sponsor these shows and keep us going and allowing us to do what we do. So again, this show here, pre-recorded. Sorry that no one will be able to call in tonight. My work schedule got in the way a little bit, along with my duties as a fire commissioner for my fire district. In addition to being a frontline black hat firefighter in the back seat, I'm also a fire commissioner, and I just didn't have the time to do it on my regularly scheduled date this month of June 18th. So I pre-recorded it, and I just didn't have the time, so I did it this way, and it worked out last time, so I'm doing it again. And one thing it made me realize is time, right? Time. There's never enough time. Actually, it's probably one of our other big challenges in the volunteer fire service, isn't it? So I wanted to talk to you just for a minute about time. It's important that we are making the most of our members' precious time. The last thing you want your members doing is coming home from that department training drill, that meeting, or even an emergency call, maybe a lengthy emergency call, and have them thinking to themselves or saying to their spouse or friend, what an absolute waste of time that was. Make the most of your members' time, because if we waste it, you might turn around next time and you're not going to have as many members showing up, because if they feel their time is wasted, they're going to be less likely to show up to that training drill, that work detail, hose testing that we all love to do, or that community event, or God forbid, even that emergency call. Yes, we can return from an emergency call, we can talk to each other, shake our heads a little bit, and think, man, that was a waste of time. Now, most likely to the person who was calling for help, that really had no one else to turn to, it wasn't a waste of time for them. And that's how we roll in the fire service, isn't it? We go and sometimes return shaking our heads a little bit, and the craziness of the call we were just at. And yes, we might even think, God, that was a complete waste of time. And maybe it was, but we really can't control that, because the tones went off and out the door we went. And we investigated and hopefully solved the problem. And maybe, if nothing else, we made somebody's day just a little bit better. But there certainly are things we can do to get our members back in service quicker. Maybe sometimes there are, maybe sometimes there aren't. But when there are, let's remember our volunteers' time is so precious. Maybe we don't need a ton of people at some calls, and we can maybe ask some who might need to leave because they've got to get to work or they got a family event, that it's okay, we can release you. We have enough other people here. Maybe someone's got to go get their kid at school or get to their job, whatever the case may be. I remember, it's happened to me. I'm getting ready for high school graduation or something, and that call comes in, and you're out running errands, and you stop at the call. It goes on and on and on, and you're thinking, my God, I got to get home. I got the ice in the car. I got to get on the beverages on ice, or I got to make sure I get the food delivered. Whatever it is, you understand what I'm saying. You've all been there. Maybe as incident commanders or officers, we can take a look around in those situations just to say, hey, this is taking a little longer than I thought. Anyone got anywhere they've got to go? I mean, obviously everyone can't leave, but we can show a little leeway there maybe and let some people go, and maybe if we're waiting for a key holder to respond to help reset an alarm or gain entry in a building, maybe we don't need to keep the entire complement of members standing by. Not always. No, not always. And I know right now, probably thinking of times that you can't. No, I get that. But certainly there are times that we can help our members out and we can make the most of the time they are offering, and maybe even get them back in service and back to their lives just maybe a little bit quicker. And that's, again, you've heard me say this time and time again. I've talked about it on previous shows, that's why when our members are taking the time to attend drill, it best be time well spent as well. When members are attending a meeting that maybe you are in charge of running, they best feel that it was worth their time as well, that it was productive, that things got accomplished, there was clear direction, that point was clearly talked about and gotten to immediately. Make sure everyone leaving is on the same page, and make sure things are actually getting accomplished, or at least divvied up a little bit so everyone understands what they are doing and what direction everyone is moving in, and making sure everyone is moving in the same direction. So important. I'm sure you can think of meetings you've been to where an hour later you walk out and you're like, did anything even get accomplished there? You know what? Hang on a sec. Remember Hale Moore? Hale Moore talked about it in his book that just happens to be on my bookshelf in front of me. Hale Moore on Leadership, Winning When Outgunned and Outmanned. I have a note here marking meetings, because he talked about the importance of running a good meeting. And I know I talked about it when I covered Hale Moore's book on leadership, Winning When Outgunned and Outmanned, on a previous podcast. Now, Hale Moore, for those who don't know, I'm talking about the great Lieutenant General Hale Moore. In the movie We Were Soldiers, Mel Gibson famously portrayed him, based on the book We Were Soldiers Once and Young, the Battle of Idrang Valley in Vietnam, 1965. Anyway, he wrote a book that was just phenomenal on leadership. One of my favorite leadership books. And short, easy, quick read. And I recommend, if you haven't read it yet, everyone get that and get it on their bookshelf. Actually, you're going to never regret it. So anyway, he actually talked about meetings, the importance of them. He talked about the importance of running a good meeting. Some think they're not necessary, but they really are if you're going to get anything done in an organization. And you got to run a good meeting. Got to know how. He talks about in the book, here it is. Too often he saw officers who failed to move a meeting along, or worse, they failed to come up with a logical plan to handle an issue. Picture that in your volunteer firehouse, right? We've got an issue we've got to solve, or we've got to come to a conclusion on. And you go to a meeting and you go in circles and you go in circles and you go in circles, and the meeting's over because everyone's got to leave, and you walk out of there. Did we solve this problem? Was the situation divvied up if we had to do some research and everyone knows what they're responsible for and there's a designated time to come back and talk about it again? Sometimes in the volunteer fire department we yell and we scream about an issue. Maybe we do discuss it calmly, but at the end of the discussion, there's no clear consensus to what's going to be done. Ever had it where 3 months down the road you find yourself arguing maybe about the same thing, right? It happens. So, as Moore says in the book, you can control any meeting with a carefully designed agenda. You decide, and then you delegate, and you ensure things get done if you're the one running the meeting. Great information. Talks about the importance of knowing your stuff, being prepared. Hey, that's part of the professional equation, isn't it? We've got to be prepared. Because nobody likes unorganized meetings when you leave and feels like nothing got accomplished. And meetings can be tough. They're not sexy enough maybe when you compare them to some of the other things we do in the fire service, but they are important nonetheless. One thing I used to try to get done, thinking of time, maybe I had a few informal meetings. There's the formal meeting that could take an hour, 2 hours, where you're really working on specific projects or maybe getting officers together, talk about things going on in their ranks. But one thing I used to do, just again, volunteers, everyone going in 50 million directions, I used to try to get a couple things done on the same night. If I was going to be at the firehouse for a meeting or a drill or something like that, I was going to be there anyway. So if I needed to see some people who I was working with on, say, a project or assignments or something like that, since I was at the firehouse, I would meet with multiple people or have several mini meetings. Again, I was going to be at the firehouse anyway. So this way I could take advantage of the time and the time the other members were putting in because they were at the firehouse for that drill or that meeting too. Now sometimes I would have 2 meetings in one night, but I would get done what needed to be done. I took advantage of the time they were giving. I took advantage of my time, and it gave me time back at home. It gave them time back at home for their family, for themselves. I didn't have to come back. They didn't have to come back later that week to meet me on a separate item. So we got done, or we talked about what needed talking about right then and there. Maybe met a bit early. Maybe we stayed a bit late. The point is, we would get done what needed to get done. We didn't have to meet on another night. We took advantage of the time right then and there. Now, it might have been at the expense of a post-training drill meal, which we always have. Maybe at the expense of some other downtime we all enjoy with the brothers and sisters, hanging out together after a drill, a meeting, or a detail. But if we wanted to have and get some things done, and get people on the same page, and follow up with them, and not have to schedule another night at the firehouse, we found out that worked good for us. Folks, time is a volunteer's most precious commodity, and we must always make the most of our members' time. Whether for a meeting, a detail, come up and clean the rigs, or is the cleaning equipment all stocked up and ready to go? Coming up to do something else, have a meeting, is the person running the meeting organized and ready to go? Or even at the emergency call, be cognizant of how you're using your members' time. So important in the volunteer firehouse. And I did hear that expression once, that time is the volunteer's one of the most precious commodities of a volunteer firefighter. And I think that's so true. So what are you doing to make the most of your volunteers' precious time? And if you haven't really thought about it, you should, because we want them to show up. We want them to come to that call, to that work detail, to that community event. So we need to be on top of our game. If we're a leader running our department or in charge of that detail, charge of that meeting, make the most of your members' time. Hey, you know what? Enjoying a nice cup of coffee here. I did a post. I never got so much feedback on, as you know, Professional Volunteer Fire Department Facebook page or Twitter, Instagram. Now I'm putting posts up all the time about our volunteer fire service, our great volunteer fire service. I did a post about the volunteer, or the firehouse coffee pot and how it's on in our firehouse 24/7, as I'm sure it is in many others and probably yours who's listening out there. And I never got so much feedback on one post as I did that one. I kid you not. I got so much feedback about Firehouse Coffee on fresh 24/7, and I'm enjoying a cup of coffee here this morning. It's early morning here where I'm in Buffalo, New York, and I got a nice cup of coffee here, and it's waiting for summer to arrive here in eastern states here because it's been rough. But hey, as I said, I get feedback all the time. Great feedback from our listeners. And again, as fire engineering gives me some stats, I'm impressed that I have a good following out there, and I appreciate that. And tell your friends and other co-volunteers to listen in. And I just love meeting and connecting and communicating with all you. And I do get feedback a lot of times on the shows. And again, if you want to give me some feedback, tamerrill63@aol.com. But anyway, my last show. If you're not listened to it yet, I highly encourage you to. It was aired on May 7th, but I discussed the keynote address given at the VCOS Symposium. I presented that back in May in Phoenix. Discussed the keynote presentation that was given by a firefighter named Allie Rothrock. I know I got a little emotional when I talked about her experiences that she endured in her career, early in her career as a volunteer firefighter. I mean, this poor woman had to deal with sexual harassment, bullying, sexual assault, something that just never should happen to anybody, especially in our wonderful, fantastic, great fire service. And it really resonated with me. And based on the feedback I received, it resonated with so many of you as well. And like me, you were questioning how this could happen. How could this be allowed to happen? But the point is, it did. And it really gives our profession, when this story is discussed, a black eye. And so if you haven't heard that podcast and my short summary of Allie's experience, please go back and listen to the show from May 7th, and where I discussed the VCOS Symposium, which is the Volunteer and Combination Officer section of the International Fire Chiefs Association in Phoenix this year. And Allie just delivered a powerful keynote address that I talked about and had a chance to talk with her. But you know what? One thing is, like Allie, we can recover. We can learn how to never let this happen on our watch anywhere. And we all can work together to uphold the honor, the integrity, the honor and the integrity associated with the title firefighter. And again, man, woman, volunteer paid professional firefighters delivering professional service and treating our comrades and those we served with respect and the dignity that they also rightfully deserve. You can all help heal the wounds that have been caused by things that have happened to Allie and others by remembering we're there to do a job professionally and treat people professionally. And I did talk to Allie after the show, and she's going to be on a future show because I want her to tell her story personally, because I couldn't do it the justice it deserves. I tried to, but to truly get the impact and to truly learn what an amazing and strong woman she is. A true professional firefighter, a true sister firefighter. I want you to hear it firsthand. So, stand by for her appearance on a future show soon. I promise you that. Again, pre-recording tonight due to work and other obligations, but I will get her on a future show as well as several other guests, and maybe your idea for a guest or your idea for a show as well will be featured on a future show. And another thing I'm working on, and I'm looking to you, our listeners, for maybe some feedback again, some input, some information, your thoughts. I'm going to mention a word here that gets a lot of negative connotation for good reason, and I'm sure you've heard it in your department. You ready? Clicks. Clicks. C-L-I-Q-U-E-S. Clicks in the volunteer firehouse. I continue to hear this term a lot as I travel the country, and in my discussion with firefighters, I hear things like our firehouse is full of clicks. Clicks are what drove me out. Clicks cause major issues. So I'm working on this. I'm working on it for a future show, but I'm also preparing a presentation on it. because I think it's so important to delve into this subject of clicks and what they are. So I want to reach out to you again. I want your feedback. Reach out to me with your input on clicks, your experiences with clicks. Now, don't turn it into a bitch session. Work with me to identify how to maybe prevent them from harming the firehouse, or as my presentation is going to be titled, Kick Clicks to the Curb in the Volunteer Firehouse. Give me your thoughts. What do you think a click is? How have you experienced them? Please reach out. Let me know. It's too easy to complain and do nothing. But let's talk about now what causes them so much as to what we can do to maybe eliminate them. How can we lessen the negative impact they're having in our firehouse? I've been doing some research already. I've been delving into it. I've started the presentation. I've started an article on it for fire engineering. And I'll tell you one thing I think we can all do. One thing you definitely personally can do, and I personally can do to help kick clicks to the curb. Simply be nice. Be personable to your fellow members. Now, folks, in any organization, groups of friends are normal. Groups of friends are certainly to be expected and are okay. But cliques can become a real morale killer, and they can demotivate even your strongest and most passionate members. They can drive people out. Talk about hurting your recruitment, or more so your retention. Cliques can drive people out. Now, cliques usually are comprised of people who have very similar interests. That's fine. Hey, most of us have similar interests, don't we? Firefighting or the fire service. But cliques become problems when they become so narrowly focused that they do not let others in their inner circle. They don't associate with others. They look down at others. They can even be mean or make fun of others who maybe do not share the same interests, or they just don't like them. They become a real problem when fire department leadership does this too. There are cliques of officers out there. There's cliques of leaders out there. This can become a real problem if officers or the leaders in departments form cliques, and that can really have a negative impact. Cliques occur when we don't even extend the very basic courtesies to those around us. As I said, you're going to have close friends in the firehouse, those that are maybe your same age or have the same interests as you. You know, you like to hunt together. Maybe you go antiquing together. You go boating together, or look at vintage cars, or go to different sporting events, whatever it is. That's perfectly normal, and it's one of the great things about being in the volunteer fire service. Those great friends we meet and make and do things together with. That's all good. But the problem exists when you and your friends do not even say hello or extend basic courtesies to others when they walk into the firehouse. People in cliques think that because they maybe don't share the similar interests or are in a different age bracket, they cannot or do not want to even say hi or make some chit-chat or, God forbid, ask about them and their family or their job. And they do it genuinely. When they do ask, they're doing it genuinely. They're not faking it or making some rhetoric. They genuinely are interested and do care. Now, you're not going to dinner with them. You're not going to a sporting event with them. But as firefighters and members of the same organization, in the same department, everybody can certainly be cordial, friendly, professional, right? That alone can help mitigate the clique problem that I hear about constantly. And that, folks, is completely under your control. That's just one take on it. That's just one thing you can do to maybe mitigate this clique problem. But this is a project I'm going to work on. Again, I'd love your input. I'd love to hear from you at tamerrill63@aol.com or via my Facebook page, or, by the way, with Facebook, if you haven't given my professional volunteer Facebook page a like, I ask that you please do. I'm getting closer and closer to 10,000 likes. Maybe have some of your friends do it, your co-volunteers, or anybody in your family even. I really want to get to 10,000 likes. Please give it a look and a like. I update the page regularly with all sorts of posts that are geared toward the volunteer fire service. I have articles, inspirational expressions. I have lots and lots and lots of leadership tidbits of information, things I find interesting, things I think can benefit any firefighter following the page. So please check it out. Again, I'm also on Twitter. It's at TA Merrill. Instagram, I recently started an account there. All of these are geared toward the great volunteer fire service and all you great volunteer and professional firefighters that are out there. So again, feel free to reach out to me any of those ways. Let me know your take on clicks. Let me know things that you'd like to have talked about on future shows and guests that you want on. And feel free to talk to me about anything. One thing I'd never do is I'm not going to sit there and keyboard command any fire incident, any photo, anything like that, because I want to be professional and just learn from mistakes of others, learn from the indiscretions of others, and and realize everybody can make mistakes. Everyone can have a bad day. Everyone in the volunteer fire service and probably any organization has that A team that we look to so many times, but sometimes it's the B, C, or even D team that shows up. That stuff happens. And I think we can all be a little more professional if we a little more restrained with our comments and negative comments, because it just gives us all a black eye. So I won't do that on that page. I will post articles and maybe air stories of things that have happened, but you're not going to see me making nasty comments. Just, hey, let's learn from this. Let's move on from this. And there's a lot of leadership stuff on there because it keeps continuing to be talked about in classes and other sites and on these fire engineering shows. So, again, reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. So, what else is going on? What else is going on in the fire service world? Well, obviously, it's mid-June. The official start to summer is here, and as I said earlier in the show, slowly arriving here in the Northeast because it's been so wet. It has been so rainy and so cool. I've opened my pool Memorial Day weekend like I do every year. I have yet to be in it. I think we got 2 inches of rain over the weekend again. It was just incredible. But what are you going to do, right? It's not illness. It's not sickness. We can deal with bad weather. And, hopefully you have some great activities planned for the summer, both with your own family and your volunteer fire service family. Maybe some picnics or cookouts, or I know some volunteer firehouses do movie nights where the families come up and watch movies together, and that's awesome. Maybe get your people together via maybe you have a traditional annual field days that you do, and there's so much we can do in our volunteer fire service to increase the camaraderie, the morale. Hey, maybe even eliminate those cliques we talked about by doing things together. Making things open to all members. Get the generations together to celebrate being in the fire service and being a member of your great volunteer fire department. Having that cookout, playing games, and having fun together. Everybody, too. The veterans, the officers, the probies. Maybe former members come around. All one team. All one team. One clique. Cliques can be okay when it's one clique for one department. Togetherness. Promoted and celebrated, right? Right? I think it's so important. And the summer's a great time to get together and do things and have some fun. And maybe you play sports, softball and things like that. And, let's eliminate those cliques. Let's celebrate being together and being on one team. And again, you're going to have your close friends. You're going to have those friends in the firehouse that you do things with. But be open and cordial and friendly to everyone coming through your doors. You're in the club room, maybe having a soda, an older member comes in or a younger member come in. If you're an older gentleman or woman, at least say hi. How's work? How's the family? You're going to school? What do you take? I mean, there's so much you can do. We don't have to put a wall up between us, folks. You may not think the same. You may not have the same political views, but you're in the fire service. Let's be genuine brothers and sisters. One last thing I wanted to talk about on this pre-recorded show. Spend a few minutes on it. It's so important because it definitely can impact an organization in a good way or in a very bad way. It's another thing I've highlighted in previous shows, and actually it's highlighted in every book, every article, and every story about good leadership. And it's the importance of communicating effectively with your members. Now, before you roll your eyes, I want you to stop right now and look in the mirror and ask yourself, answer honestly, are you a good communicator? Now, don't cast it aside. It's not important because it's so boring and, I'd rather fight fires and drag hose lines down the hall or render EMS. I get it. But you know what? Communication is so important. And that is why it is in every single book about leadership. about successfully running a project, an assignment, a task. I mentioned Hal Moore earlier, and let me find that. In his book, again, Hal Moore on Leadership, Winning When Outgunned and Outmanned, one of the best leadership books there is. He talks about the importance of communication. And okay, here's one. I just opened it up to the one area on communication. Let's say you're a new chief, a new president, a new commissioner, somebody that's new to a leadership role. When taking over an organization, you've got to stand out in front of your people. And you've got to state clearly the objectives, where you're going, how you want to get there. So volunteer fire department, chiefs, presidents, you have to do this. Captains, lieutenants, you have to do it at a drill. A leader must have clearly defined objectives, and he must ensure those objectives are clearly understood by his subordinate leaders. How do you do that? Good communication. Good communication. Okay, I talk about Hal Moore a lot. I talk about the military a lot. I get it. Let me just reach in to my bookshelf. By the way, I'm right in front of me. I'm in my home office. Got a bookshelf full of leadership books. As I look, I see Colin Powell's book on leadership. I've got Extreme Ownership by Jocko, Turn the Ship Around, Dichotomy of Leadership by Jocko, 5-Alarm Leadership, Rick Lasky and Chief Salka. I got so many books on leadership, as you should too. Let me just take down one you've all heard of, Frank Viscuso's book, Step Up Your Teamwork. He also authors Step Up and Lead and so many others. And so, all right, I talked military. Let's look at, what does he say in Frank Viscuso's book, Step Up Your Teamwork, about communication? Well, he says firefighters often fail to realize that almost everything we do in the fire service is based on writing and presentation, both of which are forms of communication. Effective and appropriate communication is critical at all times and at all levels. I love it. You ready? At all levels in our profession. In our profession. The efficiency of a team begins with the sharing of information. Teams that do not communicate are destined for failure. And I could pull any other book off my bookshelf and find a spot that talks about the importance of communication. So look in the mirror right now and answer honestly. Are you a good communicator? Good, solid communication is so important, and you're part of it. So I want to talk just briefly about it a little bit more today and ask you to maybe focus on it a little bit more, no matter where you are. And these ideas and these skill sets and this importance of communication isn't just for the fire service. It's in life. It's in whatever job you have, right? Employ good communication skills. Okay, like what? Like what? Well, first of all, recognize, like I've been saying, how important it is and how clear, concise, and open communication is so important to effectively engage, teach, and lead your members. If you're not communicating with them, what are they going to do? They're going to make stuff up. And it leads to gossip and rumors and misinformation. And in my opinion, that leads to a dysfunctional operation. Chaos and poor morale certainly can result from that. You know, you hear things like, oh, this place sucks. Nobody told me anything. I didn't know that. I didn't know we got the new tool. I didn't know that was a new policy. What? We got a new member? You ever heard expressions like that before? I bet you have. Now, a certain amount of gossip, a certain amount of rumors, it's inevitable in any organization, but you can definitely get ahead of it. And you can head a lot of it off and prevent even more by doing certain things consistently. You know, gossip and rumor mills, they not only kill morale, but they can impact your retention and even your recruitment, but definitely your retention. Because the rumor mill definitely gains momentum when people are not exposed to the truth. They've been lied to. That trust that we've talked about on previous shows, which is the foundation of a good, solid organization. That trust is broken. And a lot of that can be remedied with open and honest communication. Now, there's nothing worse than belonging to an organization where people don't know the rules, or even worse, they keep changing, not communicating. It becomes frustrating. It drains morale like hell. It really hurts an organization. Well, I do communicate. I do put something in a newsletter and that. Well, and that's good. But what I find as I talk to people and as I go around to other fire companies, I find that, people are volunteers. They don't always maybe hear the message you're delivering the first time. They might not get the information the first time. They got a lot going on. Now that might upset some of the leaders or the people doing the communicating, but it's reality. So your people want to know what's going on. Both sides of the administration, too. This isn't just the firematic or operations side. It's the administrative side as well. So give them the goods. Give them the info. Keep them in the know, as I like to say. Or don't be surprised when they make things up. Don't be surprised when they get frustrated because they didn't know. Give them the information they need to be successful and to help your department out. They want to know where the department is heading. What are your plans? What are we buying? What's happening? Why? How does it impact them? They want to know what's expected of them. They want to know how they are doing. Talk about the new generation of firefighters, the millennials and those coming after them. Studies have shown they want feedback. They want to know, A, what's expected of them, and B, how are they doing? How am I doing? What can I do to be better? You can have the best ideas in the world, but if you're not effectively communicating your vision, your plan, your ideas, your thoughts, you're doomed to failure. Being technically competent with all that is in our firefighting arsenal is so important, no doubt about it. You can be the best firefighter in the world. You know everything there is about pumps, ladders, nozzles, hose. But if you're not technically competent in the skills of interpersonal communication, how to clearly and effectively deliver your message and talk to people, you're going to be in trouble. The greatest leaders are usually the greatest communicators. And this is both spoken and written, too. So how do you make yourself better? What can you do? Well, recognize, number one, you can always get better. All of us can, starting right now. Well, over-communicate. You can never communicate enough. Remember I did say our volunteers are busy. They might have missed the meeting where you mentioned something once. They might not like to read newsletter articles if it's in a newsletter. Maybe they don't have email if you send out an email. So do it multiple times. Put a notice on the board in the central area in your firehouse. Page out the information or text it out. Set up an email chain where you get all the members in one blurb or maybe an officers group or maybe that bylaw committee, right? I mean, you can do email and text groups so easily today for specific groups. And we have one for our bylaw committee. We're restoring our antique ladder truck. We have a committee text group for that. There's so much you can do. Actually, I'm on a bylaw committee. Yeah, we have text going out and emails on that for proposals because not everyone can make every bylaw meeting. So we do a summary and email it out so they can stay in the know if they missed it because of work or a family obligation. Right? I used to have a multi-tier approach. I've talked about it on the show before. I would cover things at most of us had monthly business meetings. I would stand up and deliver a chief's report. Or if I was in charge of a committee, I would deliver a committee report. As chief, then, I would cover some of the same things that I deemed very important before the start of our weekly training drill. Call them housekeeping items. And then we had a newsletter that would go out once a month. I would put the information in the newsletter. And for really important things, I would maybe do an email blurb. Again, housekeeping items. Depending on the importance of the message, I might not do all of those, but if something was really important that I wanted to over-communicate, I would do all of them. Again, recognizing not everyone made that monthly business meeting. Not everyone made that weekly training drill. Or maybe not everyone read the newsletter. But I'm hoping in one of those ways, they're going to get the message. It's been said so often, I know this is an overquoted quote, but 10% of conflict is due to a difference in opinion. Where does the other 90% come from? Your tone and delivery. So it's important to remember when you deliver information that you're doing it in a calm, competent manner. It's true, too, that when it comes to communication, people will remember how you address them and how you deliver the message more than what you even said. So people always remember how you made them feel and what you were doing when they came to talk to you or when you were talking to them, or if they come to offer a suggestion. So there's a lot that goes into communication. The important thing is think about how you're doing it. Think about how you're getting your messages out. Are you doing it regularly? Are you doing it consistently? That's another thing, consistently. So maybe you do the monthly meeting, the email chain, or the training drill, all three of those. Are you doing it consistently? Are you forgetting the next time? That's part of something we can all develop and learn to focus on in our organizations. And one thing we forget about too, we talked about sometimes people come up to talk to you, and as a leader or someone in the fire service, how are you responding to them? Part of effective communication is being a good listener as well, because every good conversation starts with good listening. And remember, I took down a note in one class I took that I thought it was kind of cute. Listen and silent are spelled with the same letters. So listen and silent spelled with the same letters. So listen, actually, truly listen when people come to you, because humans are horrible, horrible listeners. We're so often thinking about what we're going to say next or reacting emotionally. We're not even extending the courtesy of fully listening to what the person is saying to us. So part of effective communication is effective listening. Extend some basic courtesies. Put the cell phone down for a few minutes. Make eye contact and maintain that eye contact with the person coming to you, and listen completely. One thing I used to like to do is after I was done listening, I would paraphrase what they said. It shows that you understand it and you're taking it seriously and considering what they've talked to you about. And remember, your body language says so much about you anytime you're in a conversation. Definitely shows how much you care. Study shows, I wrote this stat down, people judge you 55% based on your body movements and your facial expressions. 38% of their opinion of you is based on your voice inflection and tone of voice. Nah, I'm not going to do that. Get out of here. I've never thought of that before. It might not work because of this reason, but let me think about that and I'll get back to you. Only 7% of what people feel about you is gained by what you're actually saying. The rest is how you're acting and how you're listening and your body movements and things like that. And tone of voice is so important. This is where social media gets us in trouble, right? People misinterpret the tone of your voice in that post or that text. How many times has that maybe happened to you? You sent a text message and it was totally interpreted the wrong way. And we all have that one person, right, who's going to suggest a lot of things that comes up and crazy ideas, and as a chief or president or leader in your department, you're thinking, I'm never going to do that. We can't do that. That's stupid. But if you still extend the courtesy of listening and paraphrasing and at least considering, it'll go a long way. You might be thinking it's crazy, but if you have to say no, still listen, still paraphrase, and let them know you'll get back to them, because it doesn't always have to be right then and there. Maybe on an emergency, yes, we're not really talking emergency scene command here. But if you say you're going to get back to them, what do you have to do? You have to get back to them. Always. And it is okay to say no. You don't have to answer every question right then and there. You don't have to know something right then and there. It's so perfectly okay to say, I don't have an answer for that right now, but I'll find out for you. But then don't make something up and make sure you get back to them. Never make anything up, because it'll destroy all trust. But always get back. I will find out. I will do that for you, and then do it. Now, to do this, because you got a lot going on in life, right? Even just as a frontline firefighter, you got a lot going on in life with your job and your family. Write it down. I used to take notes all the time. I do it on my phone now. Who was expecting what from me, what project I was working on. Someone comes up to you. Let's say let me just throw this out there. You're an officer in charge of, say, radios, the minute of radios that so many volunteers carry. The minute of radio is broken, and a firefighter comes up to you at the fire hall, and your firehouse, we call them fire halls in our area. I like to say firehouse. Let's say you're running out of the firehouse, and an officer comes up to you and says, my minute broke, it's not working, but you've got to go. You've got to get back to work, or you've got a child to pick up, or whatever. And you say, okay, I'll be up here. I'll get one the next time I'm up here. You have to remember to do it. You have to remember to do it. Or you have to remember to get up there and get it out for them and maybe send them a text to say it's waiting for you here. You don't forget that stuff. That's what builds trust. It also demonstrates your competency as an officer. I don't have the answer for that regarding that bylaw rule, but I'll find out. I'll talk to the president and get an answer for you. Do it. You don't have to make something up. It's okay. Even if you're the chief or president or a commissioner, it's okay to say, I don't know, but I will find out. And when you have to say no, explain why. It's called explain the why. That was a term that was introduced to me by Navy SEAL Jocko Willink in his great books, 2 great books he wrote that I've read on leadership. Extreme Ownership and the Dichotomy of Leadership. And he says, it's never a good idea to simply say, I said so. Of course, in a fire emergency situation, there's no time to explain the why. Things are the way they are, just like in combat. He correlates combat as, there's no time to explain the why, but maybe later, after all is said and done, you can pull the group together and say, hey, here's why we did what we did. Here's why I didn't have time to discuss it with you. Here's what our SOP, SOG best practice is, and that's why we did this. Here's what I was thinking. It's never okay to simply just tug the collar insignia and say, because I'm the chief. No, it's not. It's natural for people to question things and ask why, especially this next generation. They're going to do it. And it's really going to happen when things change. Because we know people hate change. You hate change. I hate change. So be prepared to explain the reasons for the way things are done, why you operate in a certain way, why you are not going to operate that way anymore, why you're going to take someone's suggestion up, or maybe why you are not going to take that suggestion without emotions getting in the way. You've listened, you've contemplated, you've paraphrased and made eye contact and put your cell phone down, but you're not going to do it. And explain the why. You may think that's a good idea, and I understand why you think it's a good idea, but here's why it won't work in our organization or why I can't do it. Now, it's always fun to communicate the good news, but remember this too, folks. It's also an important job to communicate the tough news. What do I mean by that? Well, it's fun to communicate as the chief. Hey, you're going to go to that training drill out of town. Or I'm going to put you on the truck committee. Or as the president, maybe it's good to make that phone call. Hey, congratulations, you got voted into the department. But sometimes a leader has to deliver the bad news, and that's communicating too. You got voted out. I'm sorry. You didn't make your probationary vote. Or, sorry, ABC vendor. We gave the truck contract to DXY vendor. It comes with the territory. It's not easy, but you'll be respected for it. Your organization will be respected for it. I heard a story once about a member who was voted out, didn't make their probationary vote, and showed up to the next week's training drill because it was never communicated with them. And when he walked in, everyone starts yelling, what are you doing here, blah, blah. He had no idea. How do you think he felt about that organization? If the leader had communicated with him after he was voted out, he still would be angry, maybe upset, but he wouldn't have those other thoughts about the organization being unorganized and dysfunctional. Stand up in front of your group and explain to them what you're doing, what's needed for support, not because you're chief or president or chairman of the board, but why you're doing what you're doing and how it'll benefit the organization. And if someone comes up to you with an idea that you really can't do, give them the courtesy, listen to what they say, explain the no, explain the why if you have to say no. And remember, their next idea might be a really good one. And if you react emotionally and with a lot of negativity, they're not going to bring you that next idea. And remember, leaders who don't listen will eventually be surrounded by what? By people who have nothing to say. So important, folks. Communication is definitely spoken. It's definitely listening. And one more thing, it's also written. Right? As I mentioned, email chains, do a newsletter as the president of your company, tell people what's going on, do a state of the department. You know what else is important? It's forgotten about so often today? To say thank you. To say thank you. Nothing wrong with a nice little personal note from time to time. Email's okay. I'm still old school. I like personal notes, but email's okay. Let them know when they're doing good. Hal Moore even talked about that in his leadership book. Talked about pushing praise down. You know, fewer things will impact a team's morale more than a leader who does not recognize their accomplishments and hard work. And in the volunteer fire department, I think that is so true, and that's why it's so important to say thank you. You know what else I say? This is another thing that's been lost in our world today, actually. Pick up the phone. Actually talk to someone. Yes, a personal letter is very nice, but it's also nice to hear it face-to-face or to pick up the phone and give somebody a call. We become too reliant on text. And again, text can be so misinterpreted sometimes, right? That's all communication. Spoken, written, listening, and you can make a huge impact in your organization, in your department, by embracing communication that is open, because if it's not open, it's going to lead to rumors and gossip and a lot of misinformation. It's got to be clear. If it's not clear, that leads to confusion, frustration. It's got to be honest. If it's not honest, what? It's going to lead to distrust, and we all know trust is so important in our organization, because once it's gone, it takes a long time to get it back. Think that can have an impact on morale? Communication has to be consistent, because if it's not consistent, if you're not consistent in the delivery of your message, it's going to lead to a fractured message. Some get it, some don't. And all of that not being done leads to a dysfunctional operation, or, if it is being done, you can have a harmonious one where members are on the same page. And that's what we want in our professional volunteer fire department. So that's all I have for this episode of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. I hope you enjoyed what I shared with you tonight. Kick clicks to the curb. Communicate effectively in your department. Enjoy your fire department family by doing things together. Make the most of your members' precious, precious time. Please reach out to me, as I said before. Let me know what maybe you want covered, guests you want on the show, information and stories you want to share. Let me know what you think about these clicks, what they are, how they impact the fire service or any organization for that matter, and what we can all do to lessen their impact in our department. Again, not a bitch session, seeking solutions, making less clicks and building more cohesiveness in our organizations, more inclusion, more camaraderie within the confines of our volunteer firehouse. And look in the mirror. Be honest with your role here in Clicks. Are you an enabler of a clique, a member of a clique, or are you one who is open and warm and welcoming to all? No, again, not necessarily best friends with everybody. That's not what we're talking about. But simply respectful, professional, and able to work with the diverse makeup in our volunteer firehouses. And if you are a leader, are you embracing good, solid, clear, honest, and open communication with all your members? Remember, you can never, ever communicate enough. So as we end tonight, folks, let's kick clicks to the curb. Email me to offer me your thoughts, tamerrill63@AOL.com. Give my Facebook page, the Professional Volunteer Fire Department, a like. Contact me any of those ways, Twitter, Instagram. Enjoy summer. Enjoy your family, both at home and the family at the firehouse. My next show is scheduled for Tuesday, July 30th. I don't even want to think that far ahead yet, because that would mean the month of July has sailed by. In my area, hopefully, July is like the best month of our 12-month year, and I really want to enjoy it, so not looking forward to July 30th as of yet, but that is my next show. So thank you so much for listening in tonight. Thank you to Fire Engineering, and again, if anyone would like to reach out to me, I highly encourage you to do it. And just remember that developing and maintaining and upholding that professional reputation, it's the duty and the responsibility of all firefighters, paid or volunteer. Thanks for listening in. Take care and be safe.